Welcome back to season 2 of the Katie Wellness Show. I am back with more amazing tools, awesome interviews, and some great discussions to help you optimize your health, body, mind, and spirit. Not only can you use these tools every day, you can also teach them to your children and to your family members so that you can raise emotionally and physically resilient children, so that you can show up more in your life, that you can take back your personal power. Get ready to tap into your intuition. I'm so excited that you're here. You are worthy of health and of joy and of thriving in your motherhood, thriving in your life. Thank you for being here today. Hey, welcome back to the Katie Wellness Show. This is your host, Lindsey Katie. This week's episode is going to be more of a story time rather than a instruction-based episode. But I am going to be sharing helpful tips along the way. So if you've been following along on Instagram at all, you may have seen back in January, I posted that we are doing some renovations. And the reason for these renovations is due to mold. And we've had a lot of friends and family ask us why we are doing mold remediation, what made us think we had mold in our home. And they kind of look at us like we're crazy a little bit, but this is not our first exposure to mold and doing mold remediation. It's actually, we've had this experience in this house one other time and a previous home and in a camp trailer. So we've had a lot of, unfortunately, we've had a lot of exposure to mold, but we've also had a lot of experience with remediation and learning what works well and steps to avoid mold exposure. Now, I am someone who is very sensitive to mold because of the unfortunate exposure that I've had. It was a large portion of my health trigger, my health journey. And if you listen back to season 1, episode 2, you can learn more about that. But mold was a big part of why I got sick. And mold is sneaky. It is hard to detect, and it causes a lot of damage, but it's kind of slow over time until you realize that you have a big problem, and then it's harder to get out. Mold is really sticky. So I'm going to be just sharing what is going through our minds throughout this process and sharing what we're doing to get the mold remediated. And also on my Instagram account, I've been sharing detox tips, things that I'm doing to support my mold detox journey. Focusing on my body, what supplements can I take? How can I get rid of the mold spores out of my body? What do I need to be doing to support my body nutritionally? Those types of things. So if you feel like you can relate to any of this, or if you know someone who may be living in a moldy environment or a moldy situation, maybe share this episode with them, and maybe they can learn ways to help their own body and help their own situation as well. Starting in December, let's go back even a little bit further. When we were purchasing this home, we came and we did the final walkthrough. And we recognized that there was maybe some damage along the baseboards. The silicone that they put along the top of the baseboards to kind of make it look even and smooth and pretty connected to the wall, it was cracked, which oftentimes can be an indication of water damage. So we tested the baseboards. They tested as dry. And we didn't do any further investigation at that time. We just were excited to be moving into this house, and we were kind of on a deadline. We were moving here for my husband's job. And so we didn't think anything of it at that time. We just thought, maybe sometime in the future we'll investigate, we'll do a little bit more digging, but we're not really concerned about it right now. It wasn't moldy. There were not appearances on the outside of the baseboard to indicate that there was a problem. So we ended up moving in 2023. And I also shared about this on my Instagram, but in 2024, in January of 2024, we found mold in our kitchen, and about half of our kitchen was under renovation, mold remediation, all of that. Because of a leaky dishwasher. The dishwasher had been leaking straight onto the floor. And because of the slope of the floor, it was going directly to the wall, and the wall was acting like a sponge. The drywall was acting like a sponge, and it was just soaking up the water. And over time, there was some pretty significant mold growth. So we ended up having to remediate that. Now, fast forward to it probably started mid 2025. One of my children was having frequent nosebleeds. I'm talking 3 to 4 nosebleeds a week. And it was typically happening at night with the bedroom door closed. He would come out in the middle of the night, and luckily my kids are all old enough to be able to take care of it themselves. And I wouldn't know about it until the next morning. But this was happening frequently, nosebleeds that often. That was like a warning sign to me, like a red flag. Okay, something's up. What are you eating? And oftentimes, frequent nosebleeds can be a vitamin C deficiency. So we got him on a vitamin C supplement, and they helped. When he took them consistently, it helped. But then it was not always working. It wasn't the fix. It wasn't the why. Why are you getting these frequent nosebleeds? And that's something that I always ask when there are issues in myself or with my family members. I want to know why. Why are you having frequent nosebleeds? And the vitamin C helped, but also looking back, that could have just been because the vitamin C was helping to boost his immune system. Another indicator to me was that one of my other kids was getting nosebleeds, not as often, not 3 to 4 a week, but it was maybe 1 to 2 a week. Kind of came in spurts, like a month at a time, and then a month off and a month at a time. And then my third kid had 2 or 3 ear infections since we've moved here that were bad enough that we were not able to treat it naturally or homeopathically. We had to get antibiotics to get those cleared up. So those 3 things combined, recognizing that it was happening only to the children, was an indicator to me that something was up with the room. And intuitively, it just kept going back to, we know there's mold damage. We know that there has at some point been water damage in their room. And that was probably the biggest catalyst for why we needed to tear into the room and do some investigating. So over Christmas break, we took some time and we moved everything that was in their bedroom out. And the kids moved to mom and dad's room, and mom and dad moved, we call it the penthouse because it's kind of our upstairs loft living area. And we just are playing musical bedrooms for a little bit, and it's kind of chaos, but it works for our family right now. And we know that it's not forever and it's going to be okay, but it is kind of annoying and a little bit chaotic. Once we got all of their stuff moved out, we started tearing into baseboards and drywall. We just wanted to start with investigating what is happening that we can't see. Because from in the bedroom, just looking at the wall, there was no mold growth. It was just kind of an off smell. It wasn't super musty. It was just kind of off. So we got our respirators on, like the heavy duty ones that are supposedly supposed to filter out mold. And we started investigating by pulling off baseboards and pulling off drywall 2 feet up the wall. And we chose 2 feet because for reinstalling drywall, that's going to be easiest for us. And it gave us a good idea of how much is this drywall damaged. So as we were pulling off the drywall, checking out the back, we noticed active organisms And I don't know the specific exact type of mold, but we are in the process of testing it to find out more information on what types of mold. If it's black mold specifically, we know that we need to be extra careful when handling it and also help our bodies as they have been exposed. One thing to note about mold is when mold feels threatened or it feels attacked, it spreads kind of like a white puffy dandelion. When you pick it and blow on it, it kind of spreads like that, where you can't see it and you can't, everything kind of smells moldy or off or musty anyway. But those little dandelion seeds, those little dandelion puffs spread, and they are absorbed through your skin and through your nose and through your mouth and any cavity to get into your body. Those mold spores, or the mycotoxins is what they're called, can easily enter the body. So we knew that we had to be really careful, cover up as best as we could. Like we had Tyvek suits and masks and respirators, so that we could limit exposure as much as possible. So on the back of the drywall, we noticed that about 6 inches up, there was active mold. By the time we got up to 2 feet, we didn't notice any more organisms. It was kind of just the bottom. And part of it is the way that this home was built. The drywall was placed directly on the floor. The drywall should be a 1/2 inch off the floor for this very reason. In case water or anything else gets spilled on the floor, the drywall, which acts like a sponge and becomes basically a meal, that organic material, for mold or organisms to grow, drywall should be at least a 1/2 inch off the ground to allow for liquid to go. It's a lot easier to just replace the baseboard than it is to tear out the drywall and replace the drywall. So that kind of was something that we didn't have control over and didn't really anticipate. And you can be sure that when we put that drywall back, there will be some space between the floor and the drywall, so we can avoid this situation in the future. Once we got the drywall cleared out 2 feet around the entire room, we started spraying. Now, if you research how to kill mold or how to treat mold, probably one of the first things that comes up just on a regular Google search will say, add bleach, add bleach. If you dive further into that research, bleach will actually provide more food for the mold. Bleach does not kill mold. Hydrogen peroxide attacks the living, active microorganisms. It bubbles and it foams to show exactly where the active living organisms are. So it shows you exactly where it's at. So we, in the past 3 projects that we've done with mold remediation, we have used a 12% concentration hydrogen peroxide. You can get it at your local Home Depot. You can get it off of Amazon. We've done both. It works the same. So we have gotten a 12% hydrogen peroxide, and we just use one of those pump sprayers and we spray it on. We soak the wood. We let it sit. We wipe up any of the bubbles and the organisms just with a paper towel. All of this we do with masks on, with Tyvek suits, with gloves, covering as much of our bodies as absolutely possible. Because again, those mycotoxins are like those dandelions in the wind, and we don't want mold in our bodies. Mold's job in the environment is to break down and decompose. It will do the same thing in your body. It will break down your cells. It will break down your muscles. It will break down healthy tissue and healthy cells in your body. That's mold's job. And in the environment, that's good. In our bodies, that is not good. So fully covered We are spraying hydrogen peroxide, and we allow sufficient time, like several days of drying time in between each spray. And we treat it several times. I think currently, so we're at the beginning of February. We have been working on this renovation mold remediation project since the beginning of January. We have sprayed that room probably 5 times, and we have done it twice, just the hydrogen peroxide, and then 2 more times with hydrogen peroxide and scrubbing anywhere that we've sprayed, anywhere that there's organisms, anywhere that there's exposed from 2 feet down to the floor. We have just been scrubbing it with like plastic bristled brushes that are not super expensive, because this is something that we don't want to keep when we are done scrubbing and when we are done treating this area. And then we have also been spraying with hypochlorous acid. Hypochlorous acid is a more natural bleach alternative, and it has helped to decrease the smell because it kills the actual bacteria. And it doesn't have the negative side effects as bleach. So that is such a great resource that we've been using. And as we were removing drywall and investigating in the boys' bedroom, it shares a connecting wall with our guest or our kids' bathroom. And we noticed a lot of mold growth also on the inside of the drywall from the bathroom. Once we got rid of the drywall in the boys' room and removed insulation, the backside of the bathroom walls were exposed, and we noticed there was a lot of mold there as well. So currently, as of the beginning of February, we have the entire boys' room drywall removed from 2 feet down and lower, and the boys' bathroom from 2 feet to the ground. And we are currently in the process of getting it ready for family to come visit. So we're just going to add to the chaos. We're really grateful that family is willing to come, even though it's kind of crazy right now. But I just wanted to share with you some of the things that I have noticed in my body as we have been going through this process. When the walls were closed up, I didn't notice a lot of these symptoms as much. But since we have opened the walls and been treating the mold and been scrubbing and doing the work in those areas, I have noticed a lot more brain fog. I have noticed achiness in my joints, which that to me gives me a little PTSD, like taking me back to 2017. If you want to hear more about my like health journey, my health scare, like where all of my desire to go deeper and find out why am I sick? Why am I feeling this way? Why is my body inflamed? Why? And fix it from the root. You can go listen to season 1, episode 2, where I talk about my story, how I got sick, and I talk a little bit about the clinic that I go to in Mexico, and where I learned about detoxing and nourishing my body, and a lot of those other things that kind of, they've helped me find my why I do this, why I feel like it's so important to educate others on ways that we can take care of our bodies in a more healthy and a mindful way, and not just relying on quick fixes. So season 1, episode 2, go check out that story, and you can hear a little bit about why the achiness in my joints is making me nervous. And I know that when I go to Mexico, they can help me flush all this out. But for now, it's really uncomfortable. I'm doing a lot of detoxes. I'm doing a wide variety of supplements. I'm just trying to support my body as I'm detoxing, and as I'm definitely taking a binder to help bind to those mold spores, so the detoxes that I'm doing can be more effective. But I will say that the very first night that we moved our kids out of their bedroom and into our room, the nosebleeds for one of my son, the son that was having nosebleeds 3 to 4 nights a week, they stopped. They stopped for a good month. Since we've been working in there and maybe haven't been as careful, since we've done so much spraying, he has had a couple since then. So that to me is indicating, hey, it's not all out yet. We need to spray more. We need to make sure that we're getting all of the areas that we need. So that was a huge testament to me that, okay, what I'm doing, even though it's crazy, even though it's uncomfortable, it was the right move, because my kids are healthier for it. And where they're still young, I'm hoping that their bodies can handle it a lot more. But I know for me and my body and the brain fog and the achy joints and just the inflammation that I have and that I feel in my body, I know that I have to treat my body a little bit differently and that my body's going to need a little bit more help in detoxing and getting it out and mold exposure. So here's your encouragement, I guess, for today. If you keep having those intuitive thoughts of, I think there's mold damage. I don't want to convince you that you have mold in your house. I don't think that's the case for everyone. But if you're noticing symptoms, and symptoms for mold are very wide range, and mold affects everyone differently. Like I said, I have brain fog and achy joints, and some people will get skin rashes. Some people will get nosebleeds. Some people will get ear infections. It affects everyone differently. But for me, what I've noticed is my anxiety increases, rage, brain fog, confusion, and it tends to go away if I leave the area for long enough. Like if I go on a vacation and I come home and all those symptoms start to come back, then I know, hey, there might be a situation in my home that needs this. So, if you want more detail on detoxes that I'm doing, or how the renovation is going, if you want to see videos and visuals and pictures of what we're doing and what we're planning and how we're treating the mold, go check out my Instagram account where I'm sharing a lot more of what we're doing. And hopefully this doesn't happen to you. It is a large pain. And also, it's not something that I recommend everyone remediate. I know that remediation is, if we were to pay a company, so when we had our kitchen situation, there was a company that was going to charge us $5,000 just to come in and do the remediation, like do the clean out, get rid of the cabinet and the countertops and the sinks, and then treat the wood. They were going to charge us $5,000 just for that. It was none of the rebuilding process. So I know that, and that was a very small area. It was maybe a 10-foot section, not an entire room, not an entire house. So I know that it can be very costly, and also it might be worth it for some who are extremely mold sensitive or who need it done quickly. DIY mold remediation is not a slow process, but we are very thorough and we do our research. Not just a quick Google search either. Like we deep dive rabbit hole, what's going to work? How do we do this? And also we do have experience with putting it back together with the rebuild process. So we are going to be DIYing a lot of this ourselves, because we have the experience. And yeah, so we're kind of in the disorganized chaos state a little bit longer, but that's okay because we know that we will have that peace of mind when we put it back together. We will know it was done right, and we should not have any issues in the future because we know we did it right. So that kind of gives us a little bit of peace of mind. But hopefully you enjoyed this story. Hopefully you could follow the story and it wasn't too chaotic, because again, brain fog, hello, I have a little bit of squirrel tendencies of not being able to keep on the same track. And I have a running joke with a girl at work that, oh, it's just mold brain. It's just mold brain. And I laugh about it and I joke about it, but to me, it really is a real thing. It is hard to stay on top of what is required of me in life, which to me means I need to be sure that I'm taking care of my body. And also, I can't wait to go to Mexico to get stem cell treatments and ozone IV and a lot of the other detox therapies that I get there. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to the mold being gone. We're almost there. We're almost in the home stretch of all the mold being gone and ready to put our house back together. Anyway, thank you for being here with me as I talked through what we're doing, and I look forward to being here next week with you. I do have an interview coming where we're going to be talking about menopause and perimenopause and what you can do to support your body for that. And I do have an expert coming on for that. So I'm really excited, looking forward to that. And I hope to see you here next week. I will talk to you later.